An error occurred. Isn't that great? Let's see. Uh-oh.
I show us live.
You show us live?
Yep.
Well, okay. I don't. All right. Yeah, I guess we are live. I'm showing an error though. Please wait a moment and then try again. So it seems to be recording, but there's a problem with the Twitter.
Yeah, I don't see the Twitter working.
Ugh.
We are live on YouTube.
Okay, we're live on YouTube, I guess. This is the second week in a row where we've got issues. I guess we're going along as we're live. Unfortunately, I guess we're not live on Twitter. I suppose I should resend the link to Twitter out and say you're going to have to go to YouTube, right?
Yep. Send something out. And meanwhile, welcome to everybody. Ready for week 10. Where are we? Week 9 now. So we're at the halfway point, essentially. Sometime during Sunday, we hit the halfway point of the NFL season. And we're starting to get an idea of who the real top teams are and who the real bottom teams are. But I think there's a lot to still be sorted out between teams, let's say 5 and 25.
I'm sorry. I'm once again live on YouTube. Link.
Well, as we go through technical difficulties, let me just start out by saying that Cincinnati had technical difficulties last week. Couldn't protect 14 or 15 point lead. They end up losing in regulation play. Flacco down 1 with a minute 30 something to go and 3 timeouts, 4 straight incompletions. Was a sad state of affairs for me, Chris, because the Jets were fatigued just as I thought. But Cincinnati, when Hendrickson went out of the game, they couldn't. Even when he was in the game, they could barely stop Justin Fields. So very disappointing performance for me with Cincy. All they had to do is win the game to get through on a couple of my plays, and they weren't able to do that. Hate to start the show off with a downer, but 2-2 last week, but the Cincy one hurt.
Well, that was a hard game for me to bet. I was on the Jets, and I guess it didn't help me that they won outright any more than if they had just covered. So I'm sorry that you were unable to cash that ticket.
I was too. What are some of your highlights from last week? Observations from last week?
Well, I'm going to have a topic. I teased it. I want to get to it in a little bit.
Okay.
There was something really bizarre that happened last week, and we'll get to that in just a moment. Apparently, I'm not fully recovered from my Twitter hack, so I'm having to do some various things here. So apologies there. Last week, it was a frustrating. It was. Boy, just nothing's working for me again. It was a frustrating week for me because I did very well in contests and the model worked well, and I did not do well betting. So if that makes any sense. How the hell in the world? How the hell did that happen? And that's what I'm going to discuss in a little bit. Let's go through week 8
Okay.
first, and then we'll get to it. How's that sound?
That sounds good. I'll have more comments on some of the games and not as much on some of the others. Like if we start out a week ago, Thursday, 6 days ago, I guess, Minnie and the Chargers. My basic takeaway from that game is backup quarterbacks are backup quarterbacks for a reason. And you got a spark with Carson Wentz for a little while, but then it kind of all went down in smoke. And Minnesota's defense, you couple that with Minnesota's defense not performing, and you get a result like they had on Thursday. So Minnie will be, even though the J.J. McCarthy experiment is still ongoing, we'll talk about J.J. McCarthy, but it's time to see what he has, and it's time to reset for Minnie. I'm glad they have 10 days to think about it, but not a shock in the Charger game.
I was disappointed. I thought that Minnesota would fare better. I had a Minnesota position, and they were hopeless from the start. You sit there and go, maybe they can come out of the halftime and show a little life. And if anything, they showed less. And you knew that the Chargers after the prior game were going to come out a little bit better than they did. And we had Joe Alt back. I think you had another player back, and they looked entirely different. They looked like the team that they were, maybe toward the beginning of the season. So I don't know whether it's all because Joe Alt's back or, it's hard to figure whether Minnesota is worse than we thought they are, or the Chargers are what they are. What do you make out of that?
It's back to the same old thing. They can't get the O-line fixed. Bunch of sacks by the Chargers. They just controlled the line of scrimmage, and they had their way. And when a Harbaugh team controls the line of scrimmage, you know the result. You know what's going to happen. And for all that Brian Flores brings to the table, it's a little disappointing that we're talking the offensive line, but we're also talking defensively. This isn't one of Minnesota's best defensive teams. And I was going to save this, but I might as well say it right now. Again, the draft matters, and Minnesota did not draft one player for safety or cornerback. And I really got on them for that. And I got pushback for that, but I'm going to stand by my conviction. Minnesota did not fix their secondary.
We talked about the Jets game a little bit. I was very nervous to take the Jets just because that team is in such disarray. I mean, when you really look at it, the two teams with most in disarray actually won outright somehow. So I believe they had like 500 yards of offense, if I'm not mistaken. Where the hell did that come from? So it was a good game for me all around. I actually had the Jets favored in this game on my metrics, and they ended up winning. So I think I pushed it all the way to the limit of I know I sent in a write-up to the newspaper, and I don't know whether I wrote it in there or not, but I think I said, don't be surprised if the Jets win this game outright. So,
yeah. I went off a situation that has worked probably 75% of the time, and I would argue that it could have worked this time, but since he got in the way, the Jets, to me, they were going to show massive fatigue. Again, not a new coach buy. They came back after London, all these different things. But I don't need to rehash that. Cincinnati blew the game. The Jets certainly didn't play well defensively. They allowed 38 points to Cincy. And then, like I said, Joe Flacco had a chance to win the game with a bunch of timeouts left and a minute and a half on the clock. All they needed was a field goal, 4 straight incompletions, and they don't get it. So I think the Jets performed as I expected for the most part, but Cincinnati's defense is just horrendous.
I don't have my rank. I mean, this Cincinnati team, what's their record now?
What is it? 3-5, I think. So they blew a golden opportunity to be 4-4, half game behind Pittsburgh, who has a tougher schedule down the stretch, still ahead of Baltimore. Cincinnati really blew a golden opportunity.
Yeah, it's. I mean, realistically, they're not even a. And Hendricks got hurt again.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're going to do with this guy. It seems like he was dinged up all last year, and he's dinged up all this year, and he wants out. It seemed like the perfect time to maybe off him for something really good. And now they've probably missed their window. You're going to get into it later. We've got the trade deadline that comes up Tuesday.
Yeah, it comes up Tuesday. That'll be interesting. Observation on Hendrickson, which applies to almost every player who holds out or doesn't get into shape or does something. There's 4 or 5 along the league. They have problems. They have hamstring problems. They have other problems. You're going to see them throughout our conversation. The people who just didn't quite get into shape, I don't think it's a fluke that they missed time during the regular season.
And by coincidence, the Lions signed what's his name to a 4-year extension. So
yeah,
that's good. Same position.
Yeah.
A team taking care of their player, and another team that doesn't. So
yeah, absolutely.
San Francisco and Houston, I had Houston favored in that game. I was a little bit nervous after watching that Seattle thing, but I thought in my head, boy, Stroud didn't have anybody to throw to against a pretty darn good Seattle defense, and they were still able to move the ball. They weren't able to get it in the end zone, but they were getting turnovers. They were moving the ball. And San Francisco's defense isn't as good as Seattle, so I thought Houston, had a decent shot of winning that game, and they did. But I was nervous about it just because they look so bad against Seattle in some ways.
Yeah, I'll echo what you said. This was a play for me, but it was my smallest play. It was Houston. It wasn't a play on Houston for me as such as we talked about San Francisco futures. This was a play against San Francisco because I just didn't think now that they were on the road after their 10-point win the previous week, what was that, against Atlanta or somebody like that, that San Francisco, I just don't think they're that good of a team. They're missing too many parts. Another guy went down. They did get Kittle back, but this was a tougher defense they were going against. So I'm not sure Stroud and Houston are in sync yet offensively. I know Houston's really good defensively, but this was an anti-San Francisco play.
The Bengals and the Cowboys can't do what the Lions have done because of ownership and general management.
Yeah.
I think that's an easy answer. What do you think?
I'm tired of hearing actions speak louder than words. Jerry Jones is full of words, but no actions.
I heard what he was saying recently, and it seems he's becoming a little bit more active and a little bit more urgency coming out of him. It's going to be interesting. He said they might make some splashes before the trade deadline. We'll have to see whether it's meddling or
he's quotable, but it's smoke. He doesn't know what's going on.
You know what? I really feel the Bears should have been able to cover. I don't remember the details, but it was certainly within their grasp. We've got the same old story where, Caleb, if you give him scripted stuff and, he's going to do it and he's going to be successful. But when he gets off on his own, he's just a mess. I know that. Baltimore did much, much better than what we would have expected defensively against Chicago. And who was the backup in that game again? I forget.
Tyler Huntley.
I was going to say Huntley. I believe he had no interceptions and he made no errors and had a good completion percentage. And the offense had a nice mix. They looked pretty good.
Yeah, I was off this game. Not a surprise that Huntley had a high completion percentage because Chicago allows over 70%. So they're going to give them easy throws. The big thing for me is I figured Huntley would take off and run at the first sign of trouble, which he did. He ran 8 times. Appreciated that because I went over his number of rushes. You're right. Baltimore played decently defensively. And this Caleb Williams thing, if we really want to flesh it out, Ben Johnson and the off season for Caleb Williams, now that he's seen him for a full year, we're going to know it's going to be 12 months from now. When we get to the end of October 2026, we'll know if this marriage of Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson will work or not. We have to give him the off season to fix some of these terrible throws. He looks good on some of these throws. He looks decisive. And the next minute, he's overthrowing a receiver by 10 to 15 yards.
Yeah, as it's pointed out in our comments, they were first and goal from the 3-yard line. And that seemed to be a reoccurring theme with me last week in various games where I needed touchdowns from the 1, 2, or 3-yard line, and I couldn't get them. I mean, I can't remember the volume of teams. And then the scary thing was watching going back to the Jets game, coach doing the right thing and going for 2, down 8, and that's why they won the game. So we do like to point out those things.
Yeah, he did the right thing and went for 2, which I was disappointed at from the other perspective. But
well, there was one other game that was painful as hell. Oh, the Packers Steelers, they went for 2, and I needed that 2, and they didn't get the 2. Miami and Atlanta, I who can make sense out of that?
In retrospect, we shouldn't have ever trusted Atlanta, who at one point was a 7.5-point favorite. I think it came down after that. I was so low on Miami that I wanted to pass the game completely. But in retrospect, Atlanta is very incomplete in a number of facets. So nothing else I have on it.
Well, I don't think it was certainly always a possibility that it was the manner that this game went down. They were never in the game, and then they stopped giving the ball to the running back. Why am I?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Robinson. He had a single-digit number of carries.
I mean, they were going 3 and out, and they were never in the game. There was never. Actually, did they get down to the goal line and then fumble on the 1-yard line or 2-yard line? Yet they were going to make it a 7-point game in the first or second quarter, and then they fumbled or something and gave the ball away. So that did hurt them. But other than that, they were never in this game. How do you get annihilated? By a team like Miami in the condition that they're in? I mean, it just befuddling. A lot of Survivor people unhappy.
That's for sure, man. It's strange to say that a Miami win as an underdog, that after about 10 minutes in the game, you kind of knew that this game was over.
They've got coaching problems there, I'll tell you, in Atlanta.
Yeah.
I had Carolina. I knew I was in trouble because they were a popular dog. It's amazing how poorly popular dogs perform, isn't it? I mean, we should start charting that in the future, because the public dogs, it just feels like they win 30% of the time, doesn't it?
Yeah. We talked about this last week, and so I'll say you had the Jets, I had Cincy, and I turned out pretty wrong about Cincy because of their defense, even though they had the big lead. I mean, I don't like the way Cincy played. But in this one, I listened to a whole bunch of podcasts last week. I do not understand why not one other show brought up the fact that Buffalo was getting reinforcements along the defensive line, that you couldn't grade Buffalo's defense just based on what they did pre-bye. So here they come in. They had 2 guys who had PED suspensions, both on the defensive line. They combined against Carolina for 6 tackles and 1.5 sacks. the defensive line play for Buffalo was different because they had time to get these guys back in there. They had a much better rotation going on. And I'm sorry, not one show even mentioned that. Then you got Buffalo, who's perfect off a bye. They haven't lost with that head coach off a bye. You got Josh Allen going against a pretty mediocre defense. To me, this screamed Buffalo, and so I will congratulate myself for this one, where I could not congratulate myself for two other plays that did not go well.
I mean, I had the bad feeling before that game started. I didn't, and there wasn't much I could do with it. I kind of started to feel this, and I said it to people. There was the Giants, and you said it last week, I believe. The Giants already blew out Philly. They were going to definitely show up, and the Giants were just, another public dog. And you could tell by the line movement that the Giants were probably not the right side, because it just kept holding over it did bounce into the 7, but you could just tell some of the sharper shops were holding over the 7.
Yeah. So 2 thoughts on this. Number one is, I said it because you asked the right question. You actually asked me, does your thinking change because the New York Giants beat Philly the previous time? And I said, yes, because it was so recent. If they beat them week 2 when we're talking about week 9, that doesn't matter. But because it was so close to when it happened, and Philly could reset and say, hey, wait a second, we have Saquon Barkley on our team. Why aren't we using him? Why didn't we run him against them the first time around? And this time he goes off big time before he tweaks his hamstring. So,
well, you knew first play of the game, you saw the run. I'm like, it's over. You just knew.
But there was a chance still for the Giants to cover. They got, I try not to talk about referees, but that tush-push play,
I forgot all about it.
Really changed the. I'm not saying the Giants would win, because we saw what Philly was going to do with their run attack. They got back to their bread and butter. But I think the Giants would have had a legit 50-50 chance to cover if not for that play.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. I cannot believe I forgot about the refereeing in that game. It was atrocious. Somebody listed off, 3 or 4.
It was awful. That play is the very reason why the rule will be changed next year, so that you can only have one person push the guy. That was a terrible whistle. I'm so glad I was uninvolved in that game, because that would have upset me.
The Patriots, they're moving on up. They're taking care of business. The Cleveland played them tough for a while, but late in the second quarter, the Patriots were able to get something moving, and then they didn't look back in the second half. Drake May is, he's getting in the MVP conversation now.
Yeah, this power number for New England is really moving up now. They're playing. I know they play a kind of a cupcake schedule. We knew that going in. Lots of personnel moves, but their power rating is still moving up. Cleveland, for me, they're a different team, home versus road. Myles Garrett single-handedly tried to make this, something that could happen, but they just couldn't get it going offensively. And New England dares you to pass, and the rookie quarterback couldn't get it quite done.
Yeah, he had 4 sacks. Didn't he have 3 sacks in the first half? And I know he ended up with at least 4 for the game, right?
He had 5 sacks. The total of 7. That was a sack prop that I lost. I've been doing very well on sack props. I had under 6.5 sacks, but it's hard to win that when Myles Garrett has 5. So 7 for the game. So he needed every one of those 5.
We're going to call them Tampa Bay, the Timex Tampa Bay, because they take a licking and keep on ticking somehow. I mean, with all that injuries, and it was never in question whether they were going to cover that game somehow. The Radler, I guess, had another atrocious game. Backup came in, and they're starting the backup this week, right?
Yeah. probably the wrong move this week. We'll talk about it. But yeah, I had New Orleans, so I lost this particular game. I knew going in that based on my power ratings, I should have got more points. But having the 4 points, I thought, well, it put me on a key number if it came down to one of those 21-17 type things. I just thought that New Orleans would do a better job in this particular game on both sides of the ball, and they didn't.
Their defense was fine. Their defense wasn't bad.
They're trying hard, but and I know they gave up a defensive touchdown right away, so it changes the makeup of the game. They're down 7-0 right away. They almost gave up another one, but a whistle blew it dead. But they lost the ball on another turnover, so they gave it away early. Rattler reverted back to last year's turnover machine kind of thing. So the Saints didn't help themselves. So in some way, if they play a clean game, maybe I get a better result, but that's what you get with the Saints. They're understaffed, and Tampa played enough defense where the Saints got 3 points and they only got 3 points. So I missed this one. And, Tampa's schedule is getting easier, not harder. After these next couple of games, Tampa's weeks 12 through 17, they're going to love their schedule. Tampa, they're in the mix for a top 1, 2, or 3 seed. We shouldn't forget about them down the stretch.
No, I think that they, if they were 100% healthy, they're in the conversation for the best team in the NFC as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
Yeah, but they're pretty well rounded and they're doing darn well with so many key players being out constantly.
The only the key here, because the injuries have killed them, but they're the only team in the NFC South that knows how to draft. So they're not top 10 drafts. They're usually somewhere in the 12 to 15 range. But when you have Atlanta, Carolina, and New Orleans drafting in the bottom 5 to 10 every year, they keep picking up ground in the draft, and they already have a better roster.
Well, I actually played Indianapolis in contests, and I had the line much higher than 14, and they wiped the snot out of the Titans. The Titans showed some life, though. I think they kind of India's defense is not infallible. So even the Titans, if things had gone a little differently, the Titans would have held a little closer. But that offense is tough to slow down. They are at numbers never seen before, I believe, offensively over the last couple of decades. That includes, some high-powered teams we, had over the last couple of decades, and this team is exceeding those numbers.
The one comment I'll make in this game is hats off to Indy for not being in a flat spot. They came out, they 38-14. There was no reason. When you see these lines of 14 or whatever, sometimes, like other people say, they play with their food. They're not really firing on all cylinders, whatever's going on. Indy won this kind of game in a way that a good team wins the game. They just take care of business. And so I think avoiding this flat spot was a good sign for Indy.
Well, that brings up a question, because I know I've mentioned it a few times. There are some teams like New England and Indianapolis. Let me see if there's anybody else that sticks out. They're just barreling through what traditionally would be flat spots. But you can kind of see it. Like with New England, we talked about it when they had the 2 road games in a row, and they're facing their 3rd road game in a row. And I'm like, I think this team is different. I think it's not going to affect them. And sure enough, they win. And I don't understand, and this is a typical flat spot, but yet you knew they were going to blow them out, and they weren't going to be flat. What is it with these teams that they are not falling a victim to these flat spot situations that history says every team usually does.
I just think the momentum is so good. It's one of those things that an indie team doesn't really want a week off right now. They want to keep playing. Just keep getting the momentum going. If they could be flat if they were off a bye, maybe, but not right now.
Well, Indianapolis has their bye week 11. Oh, the Patriots don't get theirs until week 14. So that's good news for them, I would imagine.
Yeah, normally the new coach, you want the early bye, but you've got to coach Mike Vrabel, who at least has been around for a while. Josh McDaniels, as the coordinator, has been around, been in New England. This is his third stint. It's not your typical new coach, I need to adjust right away.
Dallas and the Broncos, I think everybody has to be kind of surprised. I think everybody had to have had a little Dallas Cowboy Kool-Aid that you had converted yourself from thinking they were a 4 or 5 win team to thinking that they were at least a 7 to 9 win team, and would show some signs of life against the Broncos, but they got pasted.
Yeah, another case of no defense. So when you have well-rounded teams, Bo Nix has a few receivers to throw to. The running game is in sync. They're not spectacular throwing the ball or running the ball, but they're efficient in both. And when you can do two things, and a team like Dallas can't compensate by stopping one and forcing you to do the other, Dallas gets exposed here. I thought it's Denver's defense, and Denver has a tremendous defense, but I thought this was not one of Dak's better games.
No, it wasn't. But are you finding that Bo Nix is either he's rarely just mediocre, he's bad, or he's good?
He's just running Sean Payton's system. And in Sean Payton's system, he wants you to get the ball out fast. He doesn't want you to be Russell Wilson back there and scramble around. Get the reads. I mean, you could read more than one. He's just teaching them how to read the first guy, the second guy, the third guy. Just get it out. Create all this motion, have all these different players. They use like 4 different tight ends, and they have them in motion, and they run different kinds of routes. This is all Bo Nix and Sean Payton is a very good marriage.
Packers was a very important game for me because a lot of people were on the Steelers and in contests, and I was whipsawing. I like the Packers. The Packers were a solid pick. I think Pittsburgh is garbage, and I think that second half probably combined with the previous game is really exposed people to that Pittsburgh is far from what they indicated they might be. I'm shocked how they came out of that locker room in the second half, and they didn't do a damn thing the second half. They literally, had the expressions on their face, thank you, maybe we have another. They had no fight in them, and they've got the highest paid defense in the league, and they get carved up like melted butter. And it's just very strange when you have all these superstars. You've got the longest tenured head coach, if I'm not mistaken, and they play like this. It just shocking.
Yeah, Pittsburgh settled for field goals, and Green Bay got rolling and settled for touchdowns. And Jordan Love is maybe back in one of those high-level streaks where he throws a whole bunch of touchdowns and not too many interceptions. And he proved that against this kind of defense that he could thread the needle and get a lot done. He completed a very high percentage of passes. There was no answer for Tucker Kraft on, tight end weekend. Tucker Kraft blew by with 140 plus yards. Some tremendous tight end play around the league, which of course thrills me because I'm a big tight end advocate. And Green Bay used those tight ends. Pittsburgh has tight ends too, but Green Bay's tight ends got in the end zone, and Pittsburgh's didn't do much damage.
Who's the okay? That Washington Kansas City game was really strange. Washington kept getting the ball and not being able to get in the end zone, not being able to convert fourth downs, and you knew that they were going to pay the price for it. But they were completely shut down second half. That's what a quality team does. I felt that this was a different Kansas City team, and that they were not going to be happy with one-score results, that they were trying to put teams away a little bit this season. We've seen signs of that over the last several weeks. Unfortunately, I was on the Washington side, so just disappointing to have been right about Kansas City, and they were hopeless. Washington was.
Yeah. Well, Kansas City's a whole different team with stretch the field wide receivers. Everybody wanted to say Kelsey is done. He's not done. They're just implementing him like they implemented Rob Gronkowski the last few years. They're just using him when the timing is right. You know what? Here's the game plan against a guy like Tom Brady or Pat Mahomes. You keep the ball away from them. And Washington's first drive was how long? 8 minutes, 9 minutes. It didn't result in any points. Their second drive was pretty long, if I remember correctly, too. But once they let Mahomes share the ball a little bit and get in rhythm, then this game was over because Washington's not putting up the same defensive numbers they put up last year. It's not a bad defense, but they're going against higher quality competition this year. We talked about that with the schedule and the pacing and everything. KC on Monday Night Football. KC is my number one rated team. I mentioned that last week, and they did nothing to change that. Buffalo, because of their personnel and everything else, they moved up to number 2 in my ratings. They were almost going to be number 1 prior to the game, or at least close to Kansas City, but then Kansas City maintained that number 1 lead and gained an extra power rating point by virtue of their performance on Monday night.
Have you noticed anything this season that seems highly unusual to you?
I think that's a lead-in for something, but every season is its own kind of thing, so you'll have to clue me in.
Well, what the deal with last season? Obviously, was that favorites were doing pretty well, right?
Yeah. Well, obviously, this past week we talked where it was 11 favorites, won and covered.
That's what makes this is. I actually went through this morning and verified this. I don't think it's ever happened in the history of the NFL. What happened this past weekend? There was not a single result that would have been changed by a 6-point teaser this past week.
Wow.
And I thought about it and I go, what is the likelihood of that? So I went back 20 years. There's not a single other week where that's the case. I did find 1 week where a 6-point teaser would have changed a result from a loss to a push. And it's in the same week in 2007. There were 2 games where the team would have lost against the normal spread and a 6-point teaser would have resulted in a push. But other than that, nope. So as they raise the prices for teasers are becoming, less important. Maybe it was just shocking to me that not a single teaser, made a difference.
So what's the takeaway then? Be careful about teases. I know you've gone more to 3-team 10-point teases because you want
actually see I'm searching for something else here. And I don't understand. What do you think that there has been? What has happened since 2022 that you think has changed the game overall?
Since 2022?
Yeah. I mean, we've had some minor changes with the kickoff, but there hasn't been anything that I can put my finger on, because since 2022, each subsequent year, fewer dogs cover.
Yeah.
So in 2022, 55.6% dogs covered. Then it went down to 52.9. Then it went down to 47.1. Then it went down to 46.4. It's down below 45% now.
Okay.
So
I could tell this past week, I mentioned this to you, that this is that it was going to be a strange week, because as somebody who plays I'd probably say 3 out of every 4 of my plays are usually on underdogs. And you've known that for all the years that you've known me. And last week I had 3 favorites and 1 dog. And, I don't know where I've ever had that ratio. So I could tell that was it. So 3 things come to mind with your question. What has changed since 2022? First, special teams has changed. Now, how that impacts your question, I don't know. But the special teams has changed consecutive years, where we're, now everything starts at the 35 or 40 yard line instead of the 20 or 25. So we have a special teams change, which changes how many yards you need to score points, which changes how some teams with good kicking games are able to get more points, or good quarterbacks only have to go 60 yards instead of 70 or 75 yards. The second thing is trigger happy in terms of management. More head coaches are fired these days, 6, 7, 8 coaches a year. So you have new organizations, and maybe some of those organizations, maybe the bad teams are getting worse, and the good teams, they keep their coordinators. Spagnuolo stays in Kansas City. Buffalo stays relevant with their whole coaching staff staying intact. There's not many changes in Pittsburgh, so you know what they are every year. They're a 9-win team, they're a 10-win team, or something like that. You know what's going on in Green Bay, but the bad teams keep flopping around. And I think GMs, the GMs are to blame too, because some GMs, there's a disconnect between the good GMs and the bad GMs. And I think you can spot out some of the bad GMs. Now, how this all translates to your question, I have to think about that more, but those are the things that come to mind for me.
Well, I'm positive that information has not been disclosed on any of these popular, I know every stat in the world accounts or any other show. So
yeah.
We pat ourselves on the back for some good content there.
That was an interesting thing, yeah.
So, but we're gonna go deeper on this, because back in 2022, 6-point teasers were covering 76% of the games. Think about that. 76. 7-point teasers, 78. Now, we know statistically, what would you consider a huge move? It's huge. I mean, what's
for teasers?
Just on a percentage change. Like each and every year, you've got you have the same numbers,
yeah.
And then all of a sudden, bam. Now, in my opinion, I'd say 5% is big.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, you look at yards per carry rush. It's not even 5%. Just moving from 4.1 to 4.25 or something like that is a massive difference when it's always been 4.0, 4.1 for 15, 20 years. So depending on the stat, if your teaser thing changes 5%, it's at least in some respects significant.
I went back to previous years, and the closest, there's only one year over the last 20 years that had anything approaching, the dog cover rate this year. And back then, it was 68% it got down to for 6-point teaser covers. So that would be in the same range of what we just talked about. A huge move. That's 5%, right?
And Bertie makes a good point. I want to add that to the list, and it's a very important point. The quarterback play is so important because of the rules protecting quarterbacks. Now, the rules protecting quarterbacks changed probably prior to 2022. But the last 5 years, definitely, you touch Tom Brady and you get a 15-yard penalty, that kind of thing. There's some sort of pecking order in terms of all that. So because of that, and because of what I said, I don't know if it was with you or with somebody else, where I said, you need a top 12 quarterback to get to the Super Bowl. You can't get to the Super Bowl with Trent Dilfer anymore. You can't get there with Rex Grossman anymore. You can't get there with a lot of these quarterbacks. So if you don't have a quarterback, you have a much lower ceiling than you used to have because of how important quarterback play is.
I'm going to go one step further because that's a big move.
Yeah.
This year, now would you say that the away dogs or the home dogs generally are more dependable?
Used to be, there was a window period in the 80s and 90s, I think, where home dogs were the way to go, especially in prime time. But I would think these days that's shifted to away dogs.
Away dogs. Now let's take a look. Dogs on the road back in 2022, 75, 77, and 82% covering teasers. Dogs on the road this year. Remember, we're going from the mid 70s. This year, 57%. Do you know how that's absolutely ridiculous?
Yeah, and that's just one leg of a teaser. You got to hit both legs if you have a 2-team teaser. So it's a terrible number.
57% is think about that. That's like just a good against the spread mark. I mean, number is so low. It's 59% for a 7-point teaser. I mean, these numbers, we are off the reservation. You can go back for the lifetime of teasers. You've never had results this bad, this far away. The strange thing about it is the 10-point teasers are not getting annihilated.
Okay.
So just some, I was not able to do all the research that I wanted to do, but I just wanted to point that out. It's just amazing how poorly the dogs are doing. And I don't know whether are we in for this permanently. We're at a lower. They made a big deal about how many favorites were covering last year, and it's even worse this year. So,
yeah,
something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, confluence of factors. So, interesting topic because I didn't come in planned to respond this way, but you talk about the road dogs having a rough time, and yet we're old enough to remember when home field advantage used to be 3 points, and then it dropped to 2.5. And post COVID, most of the time, and I'm no different than most handicappers that I would respect. I use home field as roughly 1.5 points. Sunday night and Monday night, I tend to use 2 points. So if all these road dogs are not covering teases, they're not covering spreads either, yet we're not changing home field advantage. It's kind of an interesting pull and push situation, isn't it?
It is. It is. Let's see if I have more data here.
I like Russell's comment.
here's a so let's see. Okay, visitor home. You know, the home dogs are not doing well. The road dogs are not doing well. It's like across the board.
Yeah.
But here's an odd part: the favorites of 7 to 8.5 do not cover teasers at a rate that is profitable either. Does that make any sense?
Well, you know what happens with these stats is that odds makers are also aware of them, and there will be adjustments made. So we might see favorites that are higher favorites than power ratings would suggest in order to compensate until this thing starts going the other way.
Anyway, just something to keep an eye on. The reason why I started this is I'm trying to figure out how can I possibly not be doing better this season when the model is having some decent results, and it just befuddled me because my bleeding is from a very strange year at teasers. So at least there's an explanation of it, because I was kind of worried. Well, is it on me? Am I doing something wrong? As I mentioned to other people, I said, you can't sit there and think you ever know it all. If you need to pivot, you have to pivot when you can. You can't be stubborn. It's midway through the season. I don't like what I'm seeing. I'm working on it. I'm being proactive to try to find answers to, well, why is this not working? Is this short term? What is the explanation? Is it something that I'm doing wrong? So it's all a discovery process. You can't rest on your laurels. So that's the point.
It's a lesson in self-awareness. You're going through and you're feeling something, and then in your case you acted on it and you studied it and to try to come up with some sort of explanation for what happened. When I look at a card, let's say I look at a college card and I have 10 plays and 7 are home dogs, I'm saying, why am I, what am I doing? I'm top heavy in this area or whatever. When I looked at last week's card and I said, wow, I just don't like underdogs. I have to be aware of this. I mean, in any one week, you could like a whole bunch of dogs or a whole bunch of favorites, and there's only a sample size of whatever. It's all the timing of the games. But I just think sitting back and being aware of what's going on is important.
You had a couple of things you wanted to do.
Yeah, let's do 5 questions. We'll get into some teams. Let's get back into because this is not just a this week question. It's always thinking in advance. When we talked about San Francisco and why I thought they may implode, or Jacksonville, or when you were ahead of the curve in Jacksonville earlier, or something like that, we're looking at, for example, we're going to be looking at Buffalo now that they have their defensive guys back. I'm going to be interested in 3 weeks from now, looking and saying, okay, what do your last 3 weeks say about Buffalo? Forget about the first 6 weeks. Tell me about the last 3 weeks, that kind of thing. First question I had for you was, let me push it up here. Atlanta versus Carolina. Who's the team of those two that you think is most positioned to do better this year? And then even more importantly, which team or franchise would you trust more in the long term?
Carolina's got the better record at this point. I don't have their schedules in front of me, but it's hard to believe it, but it seems like Carolina is more there. If Bryce Young isn't done for the season, I trust Carolina more than I trust Atlanta at this point.
Yeah, now it seems a little strange because at the beginning of the year, everybody had high expectations for Atlanta, and then they improved their sacks. Penix got his feet wet and so on. And yet all of a sudden we're kind of talking out loud and saying, but Atlanta isn't going anywhere. They're spinning their wheels. Something's wrong. And I think it's a long-term problem. I wish I trust one GM over the other for the long term. I don't know. I think Bryce Young has a very low ceiling, and maybe Penix as well. So there's a lot of work to be done with both franchises. Question 2. This is up your alley, and everybody in the chat, please chime in. Detroit versus Green Bay. Is Detroit the clear better team, or is it closer to 50-50?
Oh, I think it's 50-50. I've got Green Bay actually rated higher than the Lions at this point. What about you?
I'm going to check that out. I have Green Bay. I have the Lions higher rated than Green Bay. I have the Lions third, actually, in the NFL right now.
Well, another example of why models really help and how you just need to you need to find a way to make sure that you're ignoring biases and stuff. I mean, obviously, I'm a Lions fan, and model likes Green Bay. It has them a couple spots above them. I mean, it's close.
It's close, but the other thing, and it's just a couple of spots, but
Green Bay's got a much easier schedule going forward, though. They've got an inside track to a higher seed, and that's the main contributions to why I think it's a toss-up between them.
There's a chance Green Bay's power rating does move up against Detroit this week, because that's the line that I'm most off of this coming week. The Green Bay Carolina, I couldn't get all the way to 13, so we'll see. Question number 3 is a simple one for everybody. Houston, playoffs, yes or no? I only give the tough ones comment, so
we get 3 wild cards, right?
Yeah, you get 3 wild cards. Is Houston a playoff team?
Boy, they're on the outside looking in. I think they're a playoff quality team, but I think that they're going to have a hard time overcoming this tough start.
Yeah. So here's the thing: they're going to play a lot of their own divisional opponents coming up. They're not going to unseat New England or Buffalo because they're going to be in. So they have.
Well, they can't win their own division at this point. I mean, they can technically.
No, Andy's probably going to win that. So they have to finish with a better record or win tiebreakers against either Denver or the Chargers. That's their main competition.
I mean, I think that they have hope for the playoffs, but I think the Broncos or the Chargers can falter.
Yeah. I like your comment about playoff caliber team. And guess what? Denver plays Houston this week. It might decide the 7th tiebreaker, the 7th seed. Yeah, very important game.
Yeah, that's nice that you pointed that out.
Okay, number 4, Las Vegas, the Raiders. What would you say are realistic expectations for the rest of this year? Pete Carroll now off a bye, but we've seen that the magic, it's not happening. But now that he's had 2 weeks to assess the roster, what's realistic for Vegas the rest of the year?
I think with that schedule,
5 if lucky from the chat, 1 win from Birdie. So we have some negative from the chat.
I think they're going to be lucky to get 2 wins.
Again, this is an important week for them, so it's kind of a lead up to.
Yeah, but you know what? The Pete Carroll, that team has performed so poorly from day one that we've talked about it before. It's like, is he just coming back to cash a check? Because this is a disaster. I mean, we had the confidence that there would be a notable change in the atmosphere, and they weren't they weren't going to ever make a run at the division, but we were going to see something significantly different, and we have. I think it's a much higher level of apathy and incompetence, and they've got nothing going for them. What's going to be different?
Yeah, this year, realistic expectations have got to be much lower than would have been expected. I like the fact that they got a new draft team. The guy was in the Tampa Bay organization. He did a pretty good job by Raider standards in the draft this past year. But this is not a quick fix. And I'm sorry for Pete Carroll that he had to enter a division with Sean Payton and Denver's roster and Kansas City and their continuity, and then Harbaugh with the stability and with the Chargers. The only noise I think they can make is outside of the division.
Well, I don't think that they can beat Jacksonville. I mean, if there's anything different, we're going to see it this week. I mean, they shouldn't beat Jacksonville.
That'll be interesting. Last question for Bertie and others. Who wins the NFC West?
I think Kansas City wins it.
NFC.
Oh, NFC. NFC West.
Yeah, Kansas City wins the AFC West. Who wins between Seattle and the Rams and San Francisco?
Well, the problem is I was looking at the last year's standings, so it's not going to help.
Yeah, when I used to formulate test questions and stuff like that, I always made them hard, Comet. So we want to separate the good people from the bad.
You know what? I haven't. I'd like to see the schedules again. We do know from past analysis the 49ers have the easiest schedule.
Right.
But I think I think that they're a good team. I don't know who's going to win that division.
Okay.
Because I don't trust Stafford to stay healthy. I don't trust Seattle. And San Francisco's not garbage.
So if we come back to this point a week from today, I wonder if the answer is different because of the trading deadline. The Rams have already made one deal, and I've seen the Rams year in and year out being willing to they're going to offer 1 or 2 first-round picks for somebody big in the next few days. Whether or not they get a yes or a no, we don't know the answer to that. But I expect the Rams to be all in. And the reason for asking the question is, if you thought the Rams were the best team now, I would get ahead of the curve because of the trading deadline.
But it really doesn't do us any good for a divisional bet because it's a 3-team race. And
yeah, I know. That's the hard thing. And Seattle is probably playing the better of the 3, but it's going to be tight. And then you don't trust Stafford to be completely healthy. I don't trust Darnold to make every right read in every game.
There's something wrong with Seattle. I want to see how they come out of this bye because it just seemed like they got the perfect bye as far as I'm concerned. Because the way they looked against Houston, sure they came away with that win, but it was not pretty.
I probably have a different opinion on Seattle's bye because of their win. I don't think they needed a week off. I think partly teams are going to look bad against Houston because Houston has the kind of D that can frustrate people. So I'm not sure that was a great bye week, other than the fact that, as pointed out in the chat, that Washington apparently is not going to have Terry McLaurin again. So Washington's going to be at less than full strength. Sunday night home game for Washington. We just saw them in a Monday night road game at Kansas City. Now they're in a Sunday night home game against Seattle. So it'll be interesting. Those are my questions.
I'm just looking, somebody just sent me, this season the favorites are returning they're returning 5.8% ROI. And if you're betting the underdogs, you're down almost 15%. That's against the spread. The favorites are 83 and 37, just straight up. And there in your ROI is only 1.9% for the season. The dogs are 37 and 83, obviously, minus 16%.
Yeah, my record with favorites this year is 12 wins and 2 losses.
12 and 2?
Yeah, for favorites. Because I bet many more dogs, so I just looked it up on my spreadsheet.
I've got to check mine.
And
week 9, are we ready for week 9?
Yeah, we better, or it'll be starting already.
Let's see what we have here.
Baltimore, Miami.
Baltimore's the new divisional favorite, right? At
Yes.
2 and 5.
Yeah, I think it would have been interesting had Cincinnati won, what the odds would have been, but Cincinnati didn't win, and so we're just saying that Baltimore flips the switch in terms of the defense. I don't know if it happens or not.
Miami. One of the biggest fears you would have had it as a Miami is you would have thought after last week that they were going to quit, and neither the Jets nor Miami quit. They're still playing hard. They've got a home game. They played turnover-free ball last week, I believe, and Baltimore looked a lot, pretty good without Jackson. So they seem to be a little bit more complete. The defense held up finally. Chicago's got enough spunk offensively they didn't reach their team total, so that's an accomplishment for Baltimore. We're going to have to see whether that holds water or not going forward.
Yeah, I expect to see a heavy dose of running from Baltimore in this game. Even from Jackson, maybe. I don't know, what the story is there, but I think they can control clock against Miami. I think they can do a lot of things to take the pressure off their defense, because I wouldn't fully trust Baltimore's defense.
No. I see a question. I don't think much of Arizona. We get Murray. Well, we'll talk about Arizona when we get to that game.
Yeah, we can remind us to talk about Arizona. Arizona could have been 5-2, but they blew 7-point leads or more in each of the last 3 fourth quarters or second halves of the game. Arizona self-inflicted wounds.
They've lost 5 games in a row by a combined 13 points.
Yeah, self-inflicted wounds. It's their own fault.
I don't have much to say on that game.
Yeah, that's it for me.
You can't even go for the home dog over a touchdown on prime time against the traveling short week Baltimore?
I think this is more of an in-game situation. You go through the old style. Does Baltimore jump on them early, then Miami covers late? I think this is more of the traditional John Harbaugh, watch the end game.
Wait a minute. Did John Harbaugh make any mistakes last week?
I didn't check the game, but I think they left some points on the table, but then it's Huntley. So I have a very apologize to his family, but I don't have a high opinion of his overall NFL quarterbacking ability.
No. I was surprised to see the Chicago line move up. Now, I know that Flacco's dinged up. I don't have an update other than he's dinged up. What do you have?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because my notes say a line of +3 if Hendrickson plays is a tad too high in my book. At least that way they could try to do something against Caleb and get in his face. I don't have any situations in the game other than the line being a little bit high there. Is Chicago's +10 turnover ratio sustainable? These are some of the things that I look at in my handicapping. So maybe it is against Cincinnati because although Flacco hasn't turned the ball over much this year, but in general, I would say Chicago will regress down the road from a +10 turnover ratio. So you have to be looking at that that Chicago is going to regress at some point, not actually improve.
I mean, for as popular as Cincinnati, it just seems bizarre that Chicago, is favored by 3 in this situation. Who would be the third string quarterback? Oh, what's his name again? Right?
For which team?
For Cincinnati.
Is that the one where we talked about Johnson? I texted you 25 different teams.
No, Johnson.
No, that wasn't him. That was Wash. That was a different team. Yeah. They would have Jake Browning.
Yeah. Who do they have behind Browning? They're going to need somebody new.
I think if they had to use Browning, he'd be fine. The whole thing is how many turnover-worthy plays would he have? Browning was an interception machine. But against Chicago, you're completing over 7 out of every 10 passes. So presumably, if guys are open, neither Flacco nor Browning will throw interceptions.
Chicago lost 2 cornerbacks last game too. So it just seems odd that that they'd be laying 3 on the road in this situation.
I think people are down on Cincy and seeing the handwriting on the wall. Wow, they couldn't even beat the Jets. And there was that instant rise to 3. And I understand that. Cincinnati, if you're Chicago, why not just why not control clock on Cincinnati? Why not just keep the ball away from them? Because Cincy showed nothing on defense against the Jets.
Now, here's something that we didn't mention in the Baltimore game. How many people it used to be a toilet roll. How many people on the Ravens injury list this week?
I think probably single digits this week.
Single digits? Is 0 a digit?
0 on the injury list? Really?
Let's see. 0. 0. Baltimore is 100% healthy. Can you believe that?
No, I think they'll be fine from the NFL when they find out that 3 guys are held out.
Yeah, Wiggins, Tampa Jr., Stanley, Jackson, and Buchanan, the remaining 5 on the report were all full participants.
Yeah, it's good to have left tackle Stanley because you want to impose your will on Miami's defense. That's the way to do it.
Now, if Miami beats Baltimore outright, there'll be cows flying or something.
Tua can be streaky, and if he finds his rhythm against whatever Baltimore does in the 3rd and 4th quarter defensively, it wouldn't. I think for Miami to win, it's going to have to be a track meet.
Okay, you can get all excited. The Eagles have traded.
Oh, okay. There's a team that we know isn't afraid of trading.
They traded John Mechie for cornerback Michael Carter III or 2nd.
Okay, so that's interesting because Mechie he was there like for a cup of coffee, and they never utilized him in the offense. They just didn't even utilize him. So it's probably a good move.
I like that.
That's
how about a full compliment to players to make dumb mistakes with?
Yeah, I like that. We're going to borrow that one.
We got to move along. 49ers and the Giants.
We're going to see Purdy this week.
They had more injuries. They only had 19 minutes of possession last week. Boy, the Giants just got really hosed last week. I don't know how they react to that, but that's an interesting game. I show no advantage on that game at all, really. I mean, unless it got up to 3, I'm not going to be involved in the game.
I think the interesting matchup analysis that people have to look at would be San Francisco's run offense, which couldn't run at all against Houston's good run defense. Now they're facing one of the worst run defenses in the league. Here's a chance. McCaffrey's had a so-so year running the ball, 3.4 or whatever per carry. Here's his chance to break through the same way Barkley broke through against the New York Giants last week. If San Francisco doesn't win the rush battle, it puts the Giants in play. I think the line of scrimmage when San Francisco runs the ball might be the key to this game, especially if Purdy comes back and he's a little rusty. He wants to rely more on the run and the play action pass.
How much does this Scooby-Doo guy getting hurt hurt the Giants?
Who's Scooby-Doo? What am I? Oh, a Scataboo?
Yeah.
It honestly doesn't change things from a running perspective. I think Tracy is better in a yards per carry. It hurts them from a locker room perspective, the energy he brings, the intangibles, even though he's a rookie, that hurts them. You saw people who watched the game or watched the highlights saw Dart's expression on the sideline right after that injury hit. It was devastating to them. So they have to overcome the intangibles. On the field, I think Tracy is a better option running the ball. They'll miss Scataboo's push the pile, get that extra yard in terms of both the pass game and the run game. So it's hard to quantify it exactly, but I make no adjustment.
I'm sorry. Do we know if Purdy's back or not?
I don't know, but I'm going to make the guess that they're going to try to get Purdy into this game. San Francisco offense has not scored a lot of points the last few weeks.
So I'd probably think that would you rather see this line go to 3 as is, or would you rather see it go over 3 so you'd have an opportunity to bet the Giants, or you're not going to have an interest in the game no matter what?
It's a dilemma. Not only do I have to study the matchup analysis, but you have conflicting stuff going on with both teams. There's a general NFL situation that plays against the New York Giants based on recent performance. At the same time, San Francisco traveled to Houston last week, and now I don't know if they came home or not. Now they're going to the New York Giants, and they're not going on their best behavior. I mean, they're searching for answers for their own team. I probably would say 3.5 would convince me to try to find angles to go with the New York Giants.
Yep. Atlanta and New England. Boy, it's Cousins did not look good. I mean,
yeah, that's for sure.
So I mean, who else do they have? Penix is going to be back this week, probably, isn't he?
He's battered and bruised, but they're going to try, based on what they saw from Cousins, they're probably going to try to put him out there. Cousins has a better matchup in one sense this week because New England dares you to pass the ball. Mike Vrabel teams defend the run so well. Atlanta wants to use the run to set up the pass. I think they're going to have to use the pass to set up the run.
I just don't understand. It really shocked me at how poorly they played. It's amazing the variance we're getting week to week with that Atlanta.
Yeah, not a young roster. Some mistakes as GM, mistakes at the coach. You mentioned the coaching staff at the beginning of the show. I personally don't have an interest in this game. At some point, I mean, here's New England favored over a field goal every single game, and you understand based on the power numbers that they should be favored over, at this number 5.5. They're not a perfect team.
Has New England allowed a 50-yard rusher this season?
That's a good question. I mean, they defend the rush so well. Yards per carry is 3.5, so it's hard to run on them.
I don't think they've allowed a 50-yard rusher this season.
Yeah, well, Atlanta will test that because they're going to try to run Robinson more than they did last week. The question is, will they be successful? I don't know.
Drake May got sacked a bunch of times last week.
He's been sacked a bunch of times all year. 28 for the year.
Oh, is it that high? Okay.
Yeah. Jesus. So there are paths for Atlanta. That's why this is a tricky game. I could make a case for Atlanta, but I could also make a case against Atlanta because of what you said, how inconsistent they are.
Well, New England's the vastly superior team, but you got the matchup of a team that is due for a flat spot versus a team that's coming off a humiliating experience.
Yeah, so exactly. The best you can get for Cousins right now is probably a 5th-round pick.
A what?
5th round.
Who would give him a 5th-round pick?
Well, Bertie asked if a decent draft pick. The best you could get is a 5.
I don't think he's worth it. I don't think anybody would give him a 5.
There are some GMs who probably would.
Well, okay. But I thought the question
Cleveland,
is he worth a 5th-round pick or not?
Cleveland would give him 2 4s and a 5.
Send Shadeur.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Carolina and Green Bay. Is Young back?
I think Young's going to make every effort to get back. And if he's back, I really can't get to 13, even though I'm not running to the window to pick Carolina. This was the one where my power numbers said, it's closer to 10 than to 13.
Yeah. I just got some injury stuff coming in. Nothing.
I don't think Terry McLaurin will be traded. He made 2 spectacular catches on Monday night, and that's why he's hurt now. I mean, he laid his body out twice.
Who's that?
Terry McLaurin.
So we have a big game next week for the Packers against Philadelphia. They're going to be looking ahead.
Well, I would say no because they're not in first place. So they still have to, they're still in a race. So I would say no. And they generally bounce back. They're one of the best teams bouncing back off playing on Monday night.
What was the shift between first and second half for Green Bay? I mean, it was a tale of 2 halves.
I think they probably said in the locker room, hey, you're throwing well. We know there are holes in the Pittsburgh defense. Let's just get at it. Let's just finish drives. Just finish. And then they got on a roll. Simple as that. You see it often, by the way, Chris. A team puts up 3 field goals. They go up 16-7. but they put up 3 field goals instead of touchdowns. And the team that's behind knows that they're still in the game.
Well, it was so bad that I didn't think I was worried about Pittsburgh getting too much margin.
Yeah. Well, and Pittsburgh's field goals were of the 50-plus yard variety. So it's not like Pittsburgh wasn't even in the red zone.
So what kind of Vikings do you think we see this week?
I think this game just hinges more on Detroit's aggressiveness or over-aggressiveness. These guys are going after J.J. McCarthy in his 3rd career start. So they're going to throw the book at him. And you better cover Justin Jefferson. You better not just automatically all-out blitz 7 or 8 or 9 times. You know how I feel about Campbell, and probably how you feel about Campbell. Sometimes he just said, I don't care about the time of day. I don't care about whether we're 2 minutes into the second quarter or 2 minutes before halftime. If I want to go for it, I'm going to go for it, regardless of what he should be doing. So if those plays work, he's going to look great. If not, they're going to put Minnie back in the game.
You know, it's funny because I was deleting old photos yesterday to clear out from my Google, and I came across Campbell on The Price is Right, and it's 95 cents, and he's like, yeah, I'd like to spin again.
That's a good one.
And I go, I can't delete that one. It's going to come in handy at some point.
I want you to send that one to me.
All right. Yeah, I tweeted that out before.
That's a good one. That's the only worry, because Detroit's a better team right now, and Minnesota's spinning its wheels.
It seems off the bye they've won 4 out of their 5 wins by double digits.
Yeah.
And I don't trust this McCarthy. Do you think? I think he could have played before. I think there's mentally something wrong with this guy. There's something that we don't know that's wrong with McCarthy. What do you think?
My guess is that they were trying to squeeze everything they could out of Wentz, and then it went south when Wentz became Wentz. I mean, yeah, you got Wentz, and he was live for a while, but then teams saw his tendencies, and then he got beat up and everything, and he reverted back to what he was. I thought they could squeeze one more week out of. Their thinking was they could squeeze one more week out of Wentz, and my thinking was, why?
Yeah, but Wentz, we come to find out that he already had big problems health-wise.
Yeah. Well, I think it was a mistake on their part. I think they're trying not to rush McCarthy, but that's over now. Their season is on the line. They're out of the playoff picture right now. This is a divisional game. Whatever McCarthy goes through this year, he's got to be the starter the rest of the year.
Who's the backup there now?
I don't know. Need the chat to help.
Birdie's asleep. You touched on a very important part of Denver and Houston. This could be a tiebreaker type game.
Okay. Yeah, he's the rookie from the University of Minnesota. So he's a hometown guy.
Brosner and Wolford, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. That's not going to go well.
So
Denver, Houston, yeah, best 2 pass defenses by percentage in the league.
Oh, really? And Denver still has, they're leading the sack category offensively and defensively. Yeah. One of them by 10, right?
Yeah. There's going to be turnovers in this game because I think both defenses will force teams out of their comfort zone offensively. We know it's a low total. I actually have a situation that favors the over in this game. On paper, you'd say, why would you play the overs with these 2 great defensive teams?
Defensive turnovers.
Yeah, they're going to be. It's going to be a sloppy game. People are going to come away from this game saying, wow, these teams don't look good. And I'm going to come away saying, wow, the defenses made these teams not look good. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to look at that over also.
Yeah, it opened 38.5. It started to rise a little bit.
So Nico's off of concussion protocol, or he's expected to be.
Okay.
Uh,
This is a harder game for Nick Chubb. I know he's got his yards basically a lot of times this year. This is a harder game for Nick Chubb. That puts a little bit more pressure. I know they have Woody Marks, and he's going to be effective probably in the pass game. But there's going to be a lot of pressure on both quarterbacks, but especially Houston's quarterback, Stroud. I think there's going to be some pressure on him. And so I have no opinion on the game. I wish I did, and I still have 3 more days to figure it out.
I think I heard some commentary that Chubb was going to be a workhorse in this game, that was going to be the best strategy for them. Does that make sense?
If you believe in 3.5 yards per carry, I don't think he could be if he's a workhorse, it's going to be 20 for 65. I mean, I have him. I actually charted this ahead of schedule. 12 carries, 40 yards.
That's not workhorse.
No, because I have Marks with 11 carries.
So Herbert's put himself in the MVP discussion. Alton Matt came back. Perryman, but they had some injuries last game again, right?
Yeah. Well, the good news is they had 10 days. So
yeah, that's true.
And that's good news on another front. Not that you'd think Jim Harbaugh teams are going to ever let down, but I think 10 days makes it a little bit better for them to refocus. So I don't think we'll see a letdown.
I think I saw that line coming down. Yeah, it's down to 8.5, huh?
Yeah, so I set it at 9.5. I still have the Chargers circled with my power rating because of these injuries. I don't want to create an absolute power rating for them. Derwin James, I think he was banged up last time.
I took a teaser position on the Chargers. It seems like an absurd lay for a team like the Chargers, but they have, offensively started to do better, and they still have that defense.
In the past, when just look at his Michigan tenure and you know all about Michigan. Harbaugh always beat the teams he was supposed to beat, always. And they had an impeccable record, and maybe he does so again in the NFL. You're expected to beat Tennessee. Harbaugh will beat Tennessee.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like that. Jacksonville and the Raiders. The key here is that the Jacksonville is coming in off the bye. How do you think that's going to affect the Raiders coming in off the bye?
I think both teams needed the bye.
I want to just say bye-bye to this game.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like we might have a difference of opinion here. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Vegas will look better when they don't play inside their division, because those teams that Pete Carroll has to play, Denver, Kansas City, and the Chargers, are just too loaded for them. Do you really think that Trevor Lawrence is all of a sudden going to go 24 out of 30 in this game, even if it's the Vegas secondary? I mean, Trevor Lawrence is a 60% passer. And at this stage in anybody's career as a 5-year starting quarterback, you need to be hitting above 60%.
But he's a generational talent. You just have to give him time.
Okay. How much time do I have to give him? Yeah. The other thing about Jacksonville is they have 9 defensive sacks in 8 games or in 7 games, 9 defensive sacks. So if Geno Smith's ever going to throw to his own team, this would be the week.
I like that.
Yeah, it's a funny game to handicap, but I have to admit I like the dog in this game.
The Saints defense wasn't all that bad. I have a notation on that for last week. I'm not sure that this Rams the Rams were kind of on a little bit of a roll. Sure, they're going to get Puka back, but they've got good coaching, so they should come out of this okay. You said they picked up a new cornerback.
Yeah, they picked up a new quarterback for depth. That helps. I want to say hi to Adam. Thank you for joining the chat.
I saw him when he was in Vegas here.
Yeah, I tend to see him for about 10 minutes at a time in Vegas, so we don't have long enough conversations. The Rams, blessing and a curse off the bye. They're an older team in general, so it doesn't hurt to have a week off and recharge the batteries that way. And boy, what the point total, how many points can New Orleans and their rookie 26-year-old quarterback score against the Rams?
I don't know.
What are we looking at it for team totals? 30 to 15 is roughly the implied number.
14.5 for New Orleans.
Yeah, I don't think they get there.
You don't think they can score 2 touchdowns?
I do not think they will score 2 touchdowns. And I will say this. This is not my forte to bet NFL team totals, but I'm talking myself into an NFL team total. The Rams are going to probably sack. I would say the Rams on their own will have a minimum of 4 sacks.
What about the Rams' offensive line hasn't been that great either, though. Stafford's basically been a sitting duck every week.
Yeah, league average, they've allowed 15 sacks, a little over 2 per game. Going back to defense, they have probably a top 10 pass defense in terms of percentage allowed, probably top 7. And their run defense is in the top 7. I think quietly, actually, you look at how many points they've allowed. Quietly, this defense has moved itself. Where do you have the defense overall? Because they have to be in consideration for the top 5.
Well, how many teams have allowed fewer touchdowns than the Rams this season?
Maybe 1.
Who?
Maybe Houston?
Nope.
Okay. That was
Nobody.
my guess.
Rams are number 1.
Okay. Seattle would be up there too, probably. But yeah. 14.5 seems like a lot. Keep talking. I think I have to go open a site.
Well, that's all I want to talk about with that game. This is going to be an interesting Chiefs-Bills game. I guess you like to make a big deal. You brought it to my attention to look at, and that is the dynamics of how this game changes not being a nighttime game.
Uh-huh.
It's a daytime game, but it's not an early start game. It's an afternoon, so it's kind of a tweener.
Yeah.
What do you think that benefits either of the two teams, or?
I think the bigger situation is Kansas City has 1 less day to prepare. So if they made it a Sunday night or a Monday night, it would have been a little bit different. Kansas City would have had an extra few hours and stuff like that. And Buffalo, I realize it's just the regular season, and I realize that Indianapolis has the best record, but this could mean home field advantage. And I don't think Buffalo wants to go to Kansas City.
Even though Kansas City won by 21, I don't think they had a great game. I think that they're so good right now that they just went through the motions for that game, and I think that they'll be better prepared against Buffalo.
Mahomes is on a colossal confidence building role right now. It wasn't like pre-Super Bowl when I think we kind of knew Philadelphia was going to bother Mahomes because he only had one stretch the field weapon on that team. That was Worthy. And Worthy was a rookie. He was still a rookie, even though he had played 18 games or something like that, 19 games by then. This is a different KC team. If I mean the Mahomes factor is real, but again, I'll point to the fact that Buffalo has played them tooth and nail. They've won these regular season battles. They have revenge again, and they have a fortified defensive line to at least do something more because they have guys who took 6 weeks off and they've only played one game.
Yeah, they should be in good shape.
Yeah. And again, they had 1.5 sacks combined and 6 tackles in their first action.
Well, it seems like a teaser-friendly game, no matter which way you go.
Yeah, that could be. Oh, I clicked on the wrong game. Yeah, it's going to be, it's going to be a good game, obviously.
Boy, I can't read my own handwriting. It's just awful.
My handwriting is smaller than everybody's.
This is a goofy game. I think Seattle and Washington is a perplexing game. Daniels should be back. I'm not. You know what? I don't think he's ever going to be back fully this season. I think he's got a lingering injury that's not going to ever get healed this season. I don't think he's going to ever be able to match what he looked like last season. What do you think?
I think their season is on the line right now in this game. We know that they have a tougher schedule. We know they have Sunday nights and Monday nights and short weeks and everything else. But you have to win. If they're going to make the playoffs, they're going to have to start winning games right now. I mean, it could be a tiebreaker. If Seattle doesn't win the division, who has a better record, Seattle or Washington at the end of the year? Seattle already has 5 wins. San Francisco, with the easy schedule, already has 5 wins. Detroit and Green Bay already have more wins than Washington. I don't even know if Washington wins this game, they make the playoffs.
No, I think they're out of it.
Yeah. Well, Washington, but if you're in that locker room, you're that coach, you have to say, we win this game, we're going to go on a roll. You have to think that. They still have 2 games left against Philadelphia at the end of the year. They have to lay it all out on the line in this game.
I think there's something wrong. I mean, Kingsbury play calling was abysmal. There's something wrong. You've got these 3, ultra mega job opportunities in the NCAA. You think he's heading back? LSU, Penn State?
Oh, I think he'd rather have an NFL job, but he might settle. He wants to be a head coach again. There's no question about that. But boy, I would fade Kingsbury as a head coach, but that's a different story.
Yeah, I know. But there's something wrong. We know that he's flaky.
Yeah, he schemes really well offensively, but as you pointed out, and as others have pointed out, Ted's pointed it out too. They implode in the fourth quarter. They
imploded in the first quarter with horrible play calling.
Yeah. Well, in this particular game, I still think, because I have an opinion about Seattle, it wasn't a perfect buy for them, in my opinion. I wouldn't lay over 3 with Seattle. I'm a little bit more interested in Washington, but I take that back because Washington has some negative, and I would lean Seattle, but I would never lay more than 3.
I'm surprised you think that that's a fair line.
Well, the Washington line is circled, so it's a fair. And if McLaurin's out and Daniels isn't 100%, I don't really have a line on it. But I still, and personally, I wouldn't lay more than 3, even if I would adjust if McLaurin's out and other people are out, that maybe the line should be higher than 3. But if you're asking me, would I lay it? No, I don't feel comfortable in this particular spot, Washington at home on Sunday night, laying more than 3.
I was very surprised to see that Dallas was favored by less than a field goal. I'm more surprised that it holds there.
Yeah. I had a tough time setting this game. I thought it would be 3 or 3.5. So I'm kind of with you. I was surprised at less than a field goal as well.
As I mentioned earlier, 5 straight losses by a combined 13 points. And as you pointed out previously, Arizona is a great first half look.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they respond off the bye. I think this is an underdog type game, so I'd only be looking at Arizona. I'll need to dig deeper. There's one stat I don't like about Arizona. They don't rush the quarterback, even though they added 5 defensive bodies just in the draft alone, first 5 picks. And they also went ahead and did we skip Indy Pittsburgh? We can go back to it. Where's I? So they added all these defensive players, 1 or 2 in free agency, and they still have 12 defensive sacks. And Dak doesn't get sacked. He does not get sacked.
I don't see any value on Dallas, though, even at that line. That's the thing about it. What about you?
Any value on Dallas?
Yeah.
No, I'd rather have the only way I would look is the dog in this game, and I would just have to flesh it out. I'm worried about Arizona not getting to Dak, which means Dak is going to throw passes all over the place. It's another in-game betting situation. Who's ever ahead may fall back.
We didn't talk about the Indianapolis-Pittsburgh game, did we?
Yeah, I guess we missed that. So sad as it may seem, there are some tremendous Pittsburgh situations in this game.
Taylor, 3 more touchdowns, 8.1 yards per play, just shattering offensive records. They punted last game.
Yeah, it was a mistake. So situationally, this game favors Pittsburgh. Matchup analysis favors Indianapolis. So you've got conflicting stuff, and power rating is pretty much where it should be. I would have aired maybe to 3.5, 3.5, straddle that line. I think your numbers, if your numbers are going to favor Indy by more.
I think Pittsburgh is garbage, and Indianapolis is at the top of the heap. So, I mean, in that situation, I don't know what you do with the line.
Yeah. Well, I think holding it back is there are reasons to believe Pittsburgh will bounce back. But again, Indy has kind of been the outlier. Every time you think you have a good situation against Indy says, no, we're still going to beat you. So at some point, we have to acknowledge, or I have to acknowledge the fact that Indy really is, maybe they're not as vulnerable to these situations because they're having just this dreamlike season. All right. We made like 3 or 4 live bets, maybe more than that last year. We were punching some numbers. I think the only thing I did was a Jacksonville under 10.5 was live for season win. So just to let people know, I did bet the under 14.5 points for New Orleans. So I will take it on the chin if they score 15 or more.
I think the only way Pittsburgh can, you think Pittsburgh can stop Indianapolis's offense?
We have an over-under of nearly 50. Is that correct?
It's
So they're
over
not going to
50.
stop them. Yeah. So no, but I think Pittsburgh can. I think Aaron Rodgers can get them into the end zone against Indianapolis, and if he can't, they're going to lose. They can't settle for field goals like they did last week.
So what's the correlated parlay here? And is it Pitts? You think you think it's Pittsburgh in the over somehow?
If you like Pittsburgh, I think you have to go over. Now you have to check the weather. Pittsburgh weather can be unpredictable. I'll ask my daughter what the weather is.
Yeah, have her stick her head out the window, please.
Yeah. Let's see. Today is Wednesday. She's throwing a frisbee around in the Ultimate League right now, probably.
We have a DT Plus wants us to sell some stuff now. So you got anything to sell?
Yeah. I could sell my. I don't know. What can I sell?
In case anybody came in late, I listed some. There's some amazing anomalies going on with results and underdog performance in the middle of the chat after we talked about week 8. So it's probably worth a listen. And I'm just in response to that. I'm going to be a lot more selective. Where I'm paying the prices is I can't. What I should have been doing is not moving away from the 10 pointers as much as I did, because the 10 pointers have been doing fine. The 6 pointers are rough. So that's the only thing that's what I can glean from that.
But you don't want to force things, I'm sure. 10 pointers are 3 teams, so you must have 3 teams that you feel good about.
Yep.
So that would be my point. Contrary to last week when it was an anomaly for me taking so many favorites, I think I will have kind of a 4-2 ratio when all is said and done, probably more dogs than favorites. So even with the data, we know it's a week-to-week league. Let's not be surprised if we see some more covers from the dogs this week.
Well, I better not be. Jesus.
Well, you just want certain dogs, not to cover. So we'll see how that matches. We'll have some differences, but if you have teases and I have straight plays, we may still come out okay.
What I told you going into Monday Night Football that Kansas City was a perfect 10-point teaser. And what did I give you for and I said, what did I give you for the second team?
Oh, yeah, I can look that up. You gave me 10.
I think I did. I think I said Buffalo, didn't I?
Well, Buffalo and Kansas City play each other, so I think you said Buffalo.
Yeah.
And Buffalo, so now you get 12 points in a 10-point teaser.
And then I liked Dallas plus the 7.5.
Which makes sense because of the back and forth of that particular game.
Yeah, I mean, I just can't see Arizona getting separation. Otherwise, that team will implode.
Yeah, I don't happen to see that one in particular, but that's, I think, what you gave me.
Do you think Denver can pull away from? I don't think either team could pull away from each other in the Denver-Houston game. I think you could tease that both ways.
The worry there is if one team gets behind and there are a lot of turnovers because of these good defenses, that the other offense won't be able to compensate. I mean, you could get one of these situations where it's 20-10 becomes 27-10 and so on and so forth. So I would worry about fourth quarter play if one team has a little margin.
Yeah. Yep.
First quarter. Do a first quarter or first half tease.
Boy, I wish they had those.
One company had it about 25 years ago.
They still, you know what? They still don't carry the value. What do we have in this?
It would be they had 3-point and 3.5-point teases, not 6 and 6.5.
So, what do you think about Houston or Arizona first half?
I'd want to know who gets the ball first because of these defenses. I would be more inclined in this game. I would lean Arizona first half, but they're not at home. When they were home against Green Bay, I really liked the spot for Arizona. I mean, I really liked that spot for Arizona. But in this particular game, I'd rather focus on who gets behind and whether or not I think that's the team to take, the team trailing at the end of, midway through the second quarter or some other time in the game.
Do you think Dallas going into the bye gives them an excuse to come out flat, or gives them a little bit more energy? It's a Monday night. They should be.
And Monday night. If they don't have energy, fire the owner.
So Kansas City goes on the bye. They'd like to put an exclamation mark on the first half of the season. Tennessee gets put out of their misery.
Yeah.
I think the Chargers win that game some way, somehow, probably problem free. I think they're a great teaser play. Boy, if that heads down, you can actually use 7-point teasers. And then we got Cincinnati ready to hit the bye. Jesus.
They need it.
Anything else, Sir Ron?
I think we covered a lot of ground here. We answered some difficult questions. I gave you some difficult questions. You gave us a lot to think about with the teasers and with the dogs and with the favorites this week.
Yeah, Mr. Teaser, Roger Long just showed up and he missed 2 hours of teaser talk.
Yeah. Well, you can always replay it. And, any other questions that come up on YouTube, we'll answer them. We don't get many questions on YouTube, but
yeah, I apologize. I've got no time to answer comments. And I do enjoy it. Hopefully things settle down, but
yeah, no, I'll answer them. If there are questions, I'll try to answer them, but everybody have a fantastic week. Tomorrow, I don't know what Chris's schedule is, but tomorrow, the Inside Blitz with Ted, some interviews from the Chargers. Speaking of the Chargers, as you know, we're talking about Denver and KC a lot, but we shouldn't forget about the Chargers. He'll have interviews from the Charger locker room, and we'll talk more about the NFL.
That sounds good. Last week it was hilarious. I couldn't hope to have been on, and I don't know what tomorrow looks like. I'd like to join you guys, so I'll try to join you guys tomorrow.
Perfect.
To a bigger margin than the Indy over Pitt or Jacksonville over the Raiders?
Wow, that's a tough question because I wouldn't have margin in either.
Oh, well, certainly the Indianapolis does. I don't know why. What's wrong with me?
And you would have Indy more.
You think that those margins are equal?
I think the likelihood of a blowout would be more Indy over Pitt than Jacksonville over Vegas if I was going in that direction.
Yeah, I think I'm worried about that Jacksonville because that'll be a goofy game and that could be a field goal fest or the points could come into play on that. But we'll see.
Yeah.
All right. Tomorrow, 12 noon, Ted and Ron, and hopefully myself and a bunch of player interviews. And we will be back on the same bet channel, same bet time next week.
Thank you.